Hello, Cadre 3. It's another day in the neighborhood. This isn't Mr. Rogers, but close enough for our purposes anyway. This is a video about developing a philosophy of leading, and we talked about this earlier in the journey that we've been on, and I think it was during that first semester we had a fairly extensive PowerPoint about this, but this is a kind of an update, reminder, review, reiteration of that, because that's one of the things that we do in this program is develop a philosophy of leading. It's one of the major pieces of it, and one of the things that I think is important is that this is always under construction. We don't wait till the end to do this. This is something you build as you learn, as you grow, as you find out more about who you are, what you can do, what you want to do. Capturing that in a philosophy of leading is an important part of the leadership dimension of this journey that we're on. There's a PowerPoint that's loaded onto Blackboard that you can follow along with it if you figured out how to split your screen. I still cannot figure out how to get the PowerPoint onto the video. In fact, it won't work. I've tried it several times, and I can get the PowerPoint up, but there's no sound, and you'd probably prefer that, but that's not the way this is going to work. So a philosophy of leading. Well, what actually is a philosophy? A philosophy is a system. Um, it's comprehensive. It's a set of assumptions, a set of beliefs, a set of ideas, a set of values. Anyway, it's a system. I think that's the key point. And if you were to define a philosophy, you could define it in a number of ways. A philosophy is a discipline. It's basically a core set of ideas, a core set of logic that you believe in, a core set of values, beliefs, those kinds of things. It's a set of philosophical concepts, and basically they're yours. They're not someone else's, but they're yours. And it's kind of your theory of the way you're going to go about this process of leading as you encounter the issues in which you're currently engaged in and which you're kind of counter issues as you continue. So for our purposes, a philosophy of leading is a system of thought, a system of ideas, of attitudes. And it's based upon the fact that you've learned something, you've done some research, you've thought about this. It just doesn't happen. It's something that's evolving. In fact, the characteristics of an effective philosophy of leading are going to sound quite familiar to you, and there's really three of them. It's iterative, constantly going over it and over it, refining the words, refining the language, taking some things in, leaving them out. Doesn't mean that you're changing dramatically, but the way you express that philosophy of leading it becomes more and more important as time goes on. Second, it's intentional. In other words, it has purpose to it. You intend to live by this code, so to speak, or this system that you've created in your philosophy, and it's dynamic. In other words, it represents where you are at this particular point in time. 2 months from now, it'll be different. A year from now, it'll be different. 10 years from now, it'll be different. When you're 105, like I am, it'll be different as well. So I think a couple of things that are important is that the philosophy of leading is a set of assumptions, your assumptions, assumptions that you've come about as a result of thinking, reflection, research, experience, engagement with others, and so forth. It's active and it's present. That's what dynamic means. And it basically distinguishes leadership, which is about the positions that you're in, versus leading, which is about what you do regardless of the position that you're in. And so one of the reasons, that's the main reason that we call it a philosophy of leading rather than a philosophy of leadership. So in summary then, it's a system of what and how you think about leading. Your ideas, your attitudes, your beliefs, your values, your theory of action as to how you're going to lead. It actually becomes what you would call your discipline, just like a discipline of a subject area such as science or biology or mathematics. It has a set of ideas, of values, of beliefs. It has a theory of action behind it. Well, this is your discipline in terms of leading. It's how you intend to practice, or what you intend to practice when you are leading. if you're looking at the PowerPoint, I'm moving over to slide number 13 to talk to you a little bit about how we develop certain behaviors. And we have a couple of choices. If you look at that model, which is a systems model on slide 13, it can begin by trying to think your way into a new way of behaving, such as you develop an idea about something that represents a solution to a need possibly, or a challenge. Those ideas after a while begin to change your attitudes. After a while your attitudes begin to change your beliefs. And then when your beliefs begin to pile up, they change your values. And then when your values pile up, it changes your behavior. The neat thing about the systems model is it can actually go the other way as well. You can behave your way into a new way of thinking, or, as I just described, think your way into a new way of behaving. In other words, if you start with the behavior, immediately your values are affected because you're basically trying to rationalize or justify why you're behaving in the way you're behaving. Those values change your beliefs, they change your attitudes, they change your ideas, and the cycle goes the other way around as well. And so let me give you an example. Most people every year set New Year's resolutions: lose weight, eat more conscientiously, more healthy, decide to work out and basically get more physically fit. And so that's an idea. It represents something that's a need. You need to get more fit. You need to maybe lose weight. You may need to do a whole bunch of things. And so that idea of getting fit, losing weight, eating more healthy kind of things begins to take hold. The more you think about it, the more it begins to say, yeah, you know, I should do that. That's the appropriate attitude. And then the attitudes begin to get around a set of beliefs, which says, you know, this is what, if I want to live longer, live more effectively, live more vitally, I should be doing this. It begins to change my values, and then when my values change, my behavior is going to change. Well, the problem with that is trying to think your way into a new way of behavior. It takes a long time. Some of the key behaviors that most people have are things that have taken years and years, maybe even decades, to develop through the idea, attitude, belief, values kind of thing. On the other hand, you get up on January 1 and with your New Year's resolution, you get outside and you go walk or you run, or that day you start a Weight Watchers or something program like that. In other words, you start the behavior. And one of the things about starting the behavior right away is your values start to be connected to it in a way that it's, why am I doing this? What's the point? Well, to get healthy, to lose weight, to be more physically fit. That's a value decision. And once values are involved, the change in beliefs and attitudes and ideas comes very quickly. In fact, within a couple of weeks, when you get up every morning, go out and walk or run or eat more healthily kind of thing, you begin to then make that part of your lifestyle. So that's behaving your way into a new way of thinking versus thinking your way into a new way of behaving. But the point of this is that values are the key. Until you get to that values level, whether you go thinking your way into a new way of behaving or behaving your way into a new way of thinking, once you trip the values key, things change dramatically. In other words, thinking your way into a new way of behaving, once you hit values, behavior almost becomes an automatic thing. The same thing with behaving your way into a new way of thinking. The behavior stimulates the value question of, why am I doing this? And once that happens, beliefs, attitudes, ideas fall in line. So the point of it is where will your thoughts, attitudes, beliefs, and values come from in terms of informing your philosophy of leading? Well, there's a whole bunch of sources. Obviously, one of the reasons we do reflective writing is to reveal some of those things that are core values. And if you begin to look over the reflections that you've done, what are those kind of things that you repeatedly have said that you've discovered or you've thought about or made sense to you, meant something to you? Those are beginning to be the kind of things that inform your philosophy of leading. And then you can do a number of what we call Johary Window, and we'll talk about Johary Window in the summer. Activities such as the Myers-Briggs Inventory, the Strengths Finder, the Values Tournament, the Focus Circle exercises, reading books, listening to quotes, discovering your own favorite quotes, and those kind of things. They all have little pieces in them that begin to inform this philosophy, this set of ideas, this discipline around which you want to build your leading and your leadership. Mental models help. Sometimes the mental models that we talk about in class can create an aha moment or a big idea that you hadn't thought about before, but it captures something you felt for a long, long time. Those are also sources of it. Your current philosophy statements about education and about leadership that you, if you happen to be in our Ed Leadership program, are also sources of them, although those are leadership statements, not necessarily statements about philosophy of leading. Well, the most important part of this is you need some kind of a strategy that begins to help you record thoughts, ideas, attitudes, beliefs, and values. And you do it in bullet points. You don't necessarily have to write extensively, although journal writing is a good thing to do. But sometimes that's more gets more involved with the style of writing than it does the actual content of the writing. So whatever way makes it work for you in terms of getting your ideas down. And don't worry about them looking neat. These aren't things that you're ever going to turn in or anything like that. It's just where you are at that particular kind of moment. And so it's an evolving kind of thing. And if you look at again at the PowerPoint on slide 19, there's one way, and keeping a sheet of paper around or a spot on a Word document or a spreadsheet document on your laptop where you can go to it very quickly and an idea comes up, you identify the data or the source of it, and then you try to record the idea, the value, the belief, or whatever it might happen to be, and just keep a running tally of it. Again, not worrying about how neat it looks, and you just want to capture the idea so that you don't forget it. Or slide 20 has even a different way if you want to begin recording it in terms of an operating definition, what things would come under that versus what core values or what operating principles that you've encountered in your reading or in quotes or in conversation and those and in your reflections and those kind of things. In the materials for class, our next class session, there's an attachment. It's attachment 12, a template for a philosophy of leading that I put together that may be of help to you, and you can create your own. You don't have to have a particular one, but basically you have to have something that says this is the way I define leading, and then you identify those things that says I will honor these things. Those are those core values, those non-negotiables, and then in the actual practice of the leading, what it is that you will do. And so I also put a chart together of a major topic, a source, key bullet points that you want to keep track of, and then later sort them out into definition, core values, and operating kind of principles. So that's the beginning of it.